Hey guys, I want to do another video on the ZOTAC ZBOX Pico, the PI320. This time I want to show some indie games. So some gaming at 1080p. On right now I have the box hooked up to the back of my TV, and just kind of want to show you all some performance for some games running at 1080p. I'm going to take the camera off the tripod and show you exactly where I have it mounted. It's you can see it's right here on the back of the TV. There's my Xbox wireless receiver, and there is the Pico. It's actually Velcroed to the top of the TV, so I just turn it on, press that button, and get it going. Right now I have it set up to be a pretty much easy experience without having to use having a keyboard and mouse. So basically, without having to use a keyboard and mouse, I'm sorry. So using the Xbox controller, I can do everything. So it boots directly into Windows 8, and then it goes right into Steam Big Picture. It's loading up a program called Advanced Remote Control. That's the server portion, so I can control the computer with my Android phone using it as a mouse or a keyboard. So just let it load up. Just going to turn the Xbox controller on. There we go. Now I am going to exit this really quick. I'm going to exit Steam, return to the desktop. I'm using a mouse right now. I'm going to go ahead and load up MSI Afterburner. Not so much for the Afterburner portion of it, but for the Rivatuna statistics server. Obviously you can't overclock Intel HD graphics with this program. We can't even see the core clock or anything like that as well. So, but I am going to use the Rivatuna statistics server right down here to display an on-screen display, so we can see our GPU usage, our VRAM usage, CPU usage, and etc. So let's go back into Steam Big Picture. And try a couple games. Okay, so let's first, let me kind of go through the games and let you know what I've been playing and what's been working thus far and what hasn't been. So obviously everything I'm doing is controller based, so I obviously want to play controller only games. So AAA titles such as BioShock and maybe Alan Wake and Batman and Borderlands, Dishonored, etc. obviously are not going to work on this Z3735 SoC. It's not going to work at all. But indie games, such as games from Humble Bundle, Bundle Stars, if you visit those websites and buy a lot of bundles, a lot of the indie games work pretty well. So games like Awesome Knots is playable in 1080p, Castle Crashers is playable at 1080p, Crimson Land is playable at 1080p, Hero Siege is playable at 1080p, Ibn Oob is playable, Limbo is playable, Goat Simulator is not. The box does not have enough VRAM to work with Goat Simulator. Someone had also asked about, Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed, and that does not work. I tried it even at the lowest resolution, and it was pretty much a stutter, less than 1 frame per second, so it wasn't even working. Road Not Taken works. I haven't tried Portal 2 yet. It's on my list. The problem is it's such a huge game, being that this only has 32 gigs of storage. I got to delete some other games just to get it on there, so I will try that out maybe for a future video if anyone's interested. This Tetrabot and Company and Co. that works. Tiny and Big does not work. Thief obviously will not work. State of Decay, Tomb Raider, Walking Dead series will not work. Trine is not playable. Wizard's Lizard, that is playable, and whatever is playable, obviously. Trine 2 might be playable at the lowest possible resolution. It might be, but I think when I tried it at 720p and it was pretty terrible. So all the games that I've been playing, I play at 1080p. So but they're all very playable. So let's go ahead and boot up a couple games and show you what the performance is like. All right, the first game is Awesome Nuts, and let's go ahead and get that going just to try a quick match. So you look over the left side of the screen, you'll see the on-screen display. That's your Rivatuna statistics. So the top portion, obviously, you see the frame rate. The OGL is OpenGL. The GPU, right below that shows the GPU usage, and below that shows your VRAM, your GPU memory, and below that we see the CPU, core 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we see to the right of that, well, we see the temperatures, and then to the right of that we see the CPU usage, and right below that we see the system memory usage. So we see that the frame rate, this is 1080p, this is low settings. So this is not high settings, this is low settings. Obviously you see the frame rate's pretty good. I do normally keep VSync on, and so the frame rate does dip a little more with the VSync. I do that to get rid of the tearing. The tearing is pretty annoying in this game, so I do that to kind of, I'd rather deal with a little bit lower frame rate, maybe a little bit of input lag over the tearing. I can't stand it, so. But you can see the frame rates are good. I mean, the GPU usage it isn't even fully maxed out. We're looking at 60 to 70 frames per second right now. The CPU temperatures are relatively good as well. You can see it's pretty single core optimized, but all 4 cores are doing something. So the VRAM usage is rather low. It's only 141 megabytes. So. And for anyone who doesn't know, Windows 8 does, it's dynamic on video RAM usage, so regardless of what you have it set in the BIOS, it will utilize what you have available. And right now, obviously, 1500 megabytes is being utilized for the system memory, so it could potentially go up to 500 or high 400s in the VRAM usage department. So I just wanted to show you a quick look at Awesome Nuts, and it's very playable at 1080p. Like I said, it's low settings, but still looks pretty good considering this pico draws 5 or 6 watts from the wall and barely can tell the difference between it and a smartphone. So let's take a look at the next game. Oh, now we're looking at Castle Crashers. Going to go to the game setting. It's 1080p. We're going to turn VSync off. I usually keep it on because, like I said, I'm not a fan of I'm not a fan of tearing, but just to show you what the performance is like, I'd rather turn it off right now. Go ahead and get a game going. Obviously this game's in DirectX 9. All the stats on the left are exactly as explained before. Alright, let's just find a level to go to. I don't know if it's pulling, if you're seeing this, but the tearing on my end is pretty bad. Hence, it's why I keep VSync on, is because of the tearing. But let's see how the performance is. 1080p. You did see this is also the standard setting, so it's not the high settings either. Go. So frame rate's looking pretty good. We're looking in the 50s, some dips down in the 40s, I believe. So far, so good though. I mean, this is extremely playable. And this is 1080p. Keep that in mind as well. Standard settings. So if you do enable VSync, you will see obviously more drops in frames, more, shall I say, lower frame rates. So if you do decide to enable that to get rid of the tearing, then you will see more frame drops. But if you turn VSync off, then you'll be seeing good frame rates like this. So I mean, we're hovering in the 50s the whole time. There are some levels that are more stressful than others, obviously, but frame rates are looking good. GPU usage is pretty high up there, so it's obviously using it. Memory, VRAM memory is below 200 megabytes. CPUs are not running hot at all considering how warm the box feels. And since it's passively cooled at that as well. See some dips right there, and going into this next scene, still frame rates are for the most part above 50. So yeah, so I think you get a good idea what the performance is on Castle Crashers. Let's take a look at the next game, at Hero Siege. This is with full screen, so it's 1080p. Graphics are set to low, scanlines off. Pretty much the lowest settings you can run at 1080p. This game does struggle a little bit. It's definitely playable, but it's not as... this game kind of needs 60 frames per second. I don't know why. Some games do, some games don't. This game, it does need 60 frames per second to really be that fun to play. Right now it's at 30. Obviously it is playable, but 60 would be a lot better on a game like this. You will see some levels do go all the way down to like 20 frames per second, or maybe even lower. It seems like the performance in this game, it does drop off a little bit, and I'm not really sure why. If you look at the GPU usage, you're seeing 35%, so it's not really hammering the GPU, and you look at the CPU usage, and you're seeing a lot of single core usage, but maybe a dual core, I'm seeing 80% and 30% on one core. The other cores aren't really doing a whole lot, but just some reason it's struggling on this game. So right now it's 40 frames per second. That's great, but once you start getting into more with more stuff on the screen, and bring out the next wave, it starts to struggle a little bit. So the memory usage, the VRAM usage is at 273, and the system memory is at about 1300 or so. So okay, that is Hero Siege. So let's take a look at the next game. All right, I'm pulling up Limbo to start from the beginning, and we're looking at 15 frames per second. Kind of low. This is 1080p. There's no settings you can adjust in this game. It just runs full screen, and so the GPU usage is actually the highest out of any games I've seen thus far, I believe, at 83%. VRAM's at 219 megabytes, and CPU usage is, it's kind of, again, a single core to dual core game. It's not really a whole lot. It doesn't take advantage of quad cores, but system memory usage is not too high. But GPU usage now climbing closer to 90%, so that's higher than most games. So it's about a solid 20 frames per second right now. It's funny, the frame rate is really low, but it's still playable with this game. It's just kind of a slow-paced game. There's not a whole lot really going on. It's a fun game, but it's just not having the high frame rate is not really needed, but it would make for a better experience. I would think 30 frames per second would be more enjoyable. But again, it's still playable. GPU usage is sitting above 90%, so it's definitely using some of that GPU. It's running in DirectX 9. Now you'll see the CPU temperature start to climb. I have seen this box reach 80°C on all of the cores and on the GPU as well. Now I can't measure the GPU temperature with MSI Afterburner, but there are other programs you can use, such as CPU Hardware Monitor, or Hardware Monitor I believe it's called. You can use that program to find out what your GPU temperature is. No. Okay, well that's Limbo. Let's move on to the next game. Look at Crimson Land. This game runs 60 frames per second constantly. GPU usage is not high. It's only 50-60%. It doesn't usually use the CPU a whole much at all, really, and the RAM usage is pretty low. One thing you will see is that the VRAM usage uses about 256. At least it caches that much of VRAM. So it does use a little VRAM, but it's a pretty simplistic game. There's not a whole lot going on. It is fun if you play with co-op. I think you can play up to 4 players. This is a fun game to play co-op wise. So a lot of these games that I'm showing you are kind of games that you could get from like Bundle Stars or Humble Bundle. A lot of them are indie games, and so I think that's really what this machine is really what it does well at, is it plays indie games well. If you're looking to play AAA games, you can forget about it. It's just not built for that. So, but one more thing I want to show you. I have showed you pretty much all the games. There's a couple of games I haven't showed you yet, but you'll see that this. If it's not playable, I wouldn't show you. Like I said, Goat Simulator is not playable at all. Sonic All-Star Racing is not playable. Games like this certainly are. So I'm going to show you one more thing before we end the video. So let's finish up Crimson Land. So the other thing I wanted to show you is that it's not just great for indie games and games that don't have high or even medium system requirements. But you also can use it with the Xbox controller as well. You can use it as a Plex client, and so the great thing about this is that you don't need to transcode anything. So if you're not familiar with Plex, Plex is I would recommend you check it out if you have a lot of movies or music or home videos that you like to play on anything locally. It's a great overall program. But anyways. It's a program that works really well on this box, and what you can do is you can install the Windows client, and then within Steam how you add non-based Steam games. You can do the same thing with Plex. So you go ahead and start it up, and it boots up pretty well, or pretty quickly, shall I say. Let's see here. It does take a little bit for the Xbox controller to work with it. It wasn't something that just worked right out of the gate. You kind of have to finagle with it a little bit, but I'm using it right now to control, go up and down. So, but like I was saying, the great thing about it is that it direct plays all your content, so there's no need for transcoding. It just this is a Samsung TV, has a built-in Plex app. A lot of stuff transcodes because the codecs that the TV supports doesn't support all the codecs, so, and the containers that they're in. So I'll show you just really quick. If you want to watch a movie like The Amazing Spider-Man, pull it up, pulls up all the metadata. It shows you the type of audio it's the file is in. It shows you in the bottom left-hand corner that's 1080p. It's Dolby Digital Surround, DTS 5.1. Go ahead and play it, resume. Everything starts really quickly. I have a Plex server, or a media server that I built that I essentially host a lot of my movies and content on, and it all comes up. So, and the great thing is, since it's not transcoding, you're not losing any quality as well. So you're getting all the original, the exact quality of the original file that's playing. So looks great. So you can have a, I'm sure you could do something with Kodi or something along those lines as well. I'm pretty much a Plex user, so I use Plex exclusively because I can use it on so many different types of clients. But the cool thing is I can just turn the computer on, sit on the couch, play games, and at the same time I can watch any movies that I have on my Plex server just by going to the Plex app from Steam and using the Xbox controller. So it's a pretty nice all-in-one solution for that as well. So I just wanted to kind of show you what it was capable on that end as well. So if you guys have any questions about any other games or anything else or anything about Plex, just leave them in the comments. All right, thanks for checking this out. There's actually one more thing that I wanted to mention that I failed to mention. So you can use the Xbox controller exclusively, like I said, and even from the Steam menu, the big picture menu, you can go straight to exit, and you can go straight to shut down. So it shuts down the computer. So you don't have to bust out a mouse, keyboard, or anything like that. It just shuts on the computer, and you're done.